Forgot to push that button there. So the idea of focusing on the presence of the question and the answer in our mind, no matter where the answer seems to come from, is I think is what's going to make this a universal effort.
Mhm.
One can ask, you can ask yourself, I can ask myself, okay, this isn't working for me. There must be a better way. What is that? How can I discover that? What is the tool that I can use? And the tool is nothing more than realizing that there is a better way, and coming to trust that, no matter how you approach the answer to that. And that's actually what I wanted to talk about today, was how does one approach the idea that there is a better way? Where can I, in my life, in my example of how I'm living, example of what I'm doing right, of what I'm doing wrong, how can that example set up for me the way to realize that there is a better way? And for me, the idea is that I can look at where I am right now, and because there's the only thing I am is right now, is and see that I am not experiencing a pure, perfect love, and that the choice is mine to do that. I'm not a victim of something else. I'm not being forced to do a certain thing, or choose to do a certain thing that makes the idea or the realization of love in my life, and the removal of the blocks to the presence of love. uh, I cannot blame that on someone else. And so the first thing to do is to accept the responsibility that I am as God created me. And however one wants to look at that, however one wants to see it, and then to be able to look at the idea that if God created me, then I must be as God created me. There can't be a change. There cannot be a there cannot be a going off the track, except as I choose to think that it is possible. So if I am welcoming a guest into my office, my storefront, my idea is that this person, whoever stands before me or sits before me, is perfect and is enlightened. And the only reason that there seems to be a block to that is because I am helping to reinforce the idea that I'm not, and that he is not, or she is not. And so the healing that has to take place is in the mind. And how I approach that healing is how there must be a better way is going to work. How am I going to approach that healing? What tools can I have? What can there be that will help me teach myself and the person, my brother before me, to help teach us both that there is a better way, and that this is not something that's insurmountable. It is not something that is impossible. And so many people walk around thinking, oh, my life is so screwed up, there's no way I'm going to straighten it out. But in fact, the idea is that it's not this life that I'm trying to fix. It is my mind that I'm trying to fix. And how am I going to do that except by realizing that the only thing that can be perfect and the only thing that can work is the idea that God created perfectly, and that God, love, however you want to define it, is the answer to the problem. It is simply by removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence that keeps me afloat, helps me keep my head above water in this whole thing. Any thoughts about that?
No, I mean, I feel that what you said is just perfect. And
Thank you.
I'm happy you recorded it, because I tried to write down while you were
Me too.
saying, and what I wrote down was not exactly what you said in the words, but it was in the essence, because I couldn't type so quickly. But basically I said, how can I coach the idea of there must be a better way? I observe myself right now and realize that I do not feel 100% love and harmony. So I accept the responsibility that I am as God created me. I take 100% responsibility for how I feel. And maybe I should add the word now. How do I feel now? I'm not trying to fix anything outside, but just my own mind. The answer is that God created me perfect. And that's what I wrote. And maybe Caroline can share, because you also try to write, right? Can you share your, how did you?
Well, what I was writing, I wrote healing is in the mind, and I underlined it. What tools can help teach me for me and the person in front of me? Remember, God created perfectly, and it's how I see.
How do we get around the idea that I'm not perfect, that I have somehow made God angry, or that I'm not worthy of God's love? How do I get around that idea? And where is something, I guess, how can I prove to myself that that is true? And then subsequently, how can I prove that it is true also for the client before me?
Yes, that's amazing. Because I could see like a person in prison that is facing very difficult situations every day. For example, with a guard,
Mhm.
or with another prisoner that just doesn't like him. And they are facing it, and they then have this challenge. How do I get around the idea that I'm not perfect, and that other person is not perfect, and that the situation that I'm facing is not perfect right now? And then the prisoner will then receive the answer from inside and share it through the newsletter. You know, that is a perfect situation.
The unfortunately, the proof of this answer is nowhere in this world. In fact, it is absolutely outside of this world. It is in the reality of who we are as God truly created us. And so I think the idea has to come from the person being convinced, coming to believe, coming to understand that God cannot create anything that is imperfect. I always come back to the first page of the course, which is that, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. There is a fault of the ego, which tends to believe that it knows itself better than even God does. And that is the idea that the ego's mind is the repository of all truth and hope and power in the universe, except for one problem: it's not infinite. Therefore, if it's not infinite, it can be threatened. It can come to an experience of excuse me, of death or ending. And the idea that God is infinite and therefore so must be is its creativity and its creation, is the idea that the we must allow God to be God and allow the ego to realize its fault, its fallacy, its tininess in the face of God's love. And so I like referring to the ego as the little critter. I can't remember who, someone said that one time, and I just love that that phrase, the little critter. And by not hating the ego, by not faulting the ego, by not trying to prove the ego is bad or wrong, but just allowing the ego to recede into its own truth, which is that it is not forever, it is not eternal, it is not infinity, and then allowing that to slowly fade away, and gently, not forcefully. And I think that a lot of the problems is that once I had my own problems with it. Once I came to the idea that the ego was the problem, I made it the fault. I made it the evil thing, and I made it the hero of the dream of the dream of separation from God. And that just made it more real and more real and more real until I finally went, there's got to be a better way. And the better way was to realize that the ego has no power because it is finite. It will not last through eternity like love does, like God does. And accepting that idea of love being eternal, absolutely eternal, that the idea is we will let that sit as the truth that we build everything around, and then come to the idea that we are going to, hi Judy, how are you? Oh, we've been recording this so that if you missed anything, you can go back and listen to it later when I finally remember to push the record button. What we're talking about is the idea of how do we teach ourselves, and by extension teach the brother before us, that there is a better way. That when we ask the question, there must be a better way, there is. And where is the proof of that? And how do I extend that idea to the sonship, including the individual brother or sister in the Christ mind sitting before me, who has come into my storefront or read my t-shirt or just asked the question. And that was something else I wanted to talk about, was allowing the question to be asked, almost encouraging the question to be asked. How can I help that? How can I help that question be asked by myself and my brother, so that we can start investigating what that better way might be? And again, it's the idea that the person in front of me and myself, we are already enlightened, and it is just a matter of being aware of that and accepting that. Just accepting the idea that I and my brother are already truly enlightened, and that I can invite my brother to ask that question so that we can start a dialogue on the idea that there is a better way. I've blathered on long enough.
Can you ask what is a clear, concise question that we're
Is there
asking
a
to answer?
There must be a better way. What is it?
A better way to recognize the truth of our divinity.
Yes, or just
Okay.
or even starting small. I've got a problem with my neighbor. We're constantly yelling at each other across the fence that separates our property. There must be a better way than that. What is it? Just start small. We don't have to fix we don't have to fix the entire universe all at once. It's going to happen anyway. But on an individual basis, when I see myself as an individual and separate from my brother, right there is a problem. And how do I acknowledge the idea that I and my brother are one, and therefore I don't have a problem, and my brother doesn't have a problem? And how do we do that? There must be a better way. Thoughts? Judy, you're muted, Judy.
I don't have my iPad working. I'm on my iPhone, so
Okay.
I miss the gallery a lot. I see Danny and Carol, and I'll scroll and see everybody else later. But what comes to mind for me, when my ego gets involved, I need to do something completely different. You know, like Karen says, do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around. I might be inclined, if I had a conflict with a neighbor, to apologize for whatever part I had in whatever conflict, that I recognize everybody has a right to a different opinion, and could I offer you some of these homemade cookies? Or I made some cheese lasagna. Would you like some? You know, to start extending as if this person is your best friend.
Because they are.
Well, they are, but nonetheless, there's tedious people. And I'm sorry to say that because I'm tedious as well. But that would win me over. Sweetness, not even in a treat food form, but just the acknowledgement that something has gone amiss. And what can I do to change this for us? Something like that, but with an apology and an extension of something, whatever that extension is. I go to baked goods and lasagna, but some gift that totally ignores the fact that there's been a ripple of conflict.
Well, bribery by lasagna always works for me.
That's good, bribery. So social commerce, I like to think of it as, but
right. Well, let me come at it from this angle here. If I am apologizing for something, that means that I have done something wrong, or that
I didn't phrase that correctly. I'm not apologizing for picking up somebody else's apple. I'm saying there is a rift, and whatever part I have in it, I would like to put that aside in the interest of peace. Not to this dialogue about who moved the apple, because that's all ego, but just to step aside from the ego completely, sidestep it. This person has a spirit as well, and just don't talk God, because, you know, whatever, people are sometimes dismissive, but just, I'm part of this problem. I would like to be part of the solution. Something like that, you know. I mean, your own words, but seeing that no one is at fault. No one is at fault. It's just
right. Exactly.
The ego having a little drama. And do I want to change this into a comedy and love story? Probably. And so I have to change my own position, and sometimes just admitting I don't know what to do, but I want peace between us. You are my neighbor,
and therefore you're no one is at fault.
No one's at
It's-
fault. And you
right.
don't expect this person to say, oh, yes, welcome, welcome. No, I am only bringing my, when I can, my attitude and leaving it there. And hopefully then it will melt the other person's resistance and ego and see that, yeah, it might be nicer just to wave friendly like, you know,
Mhm.
because we're never upset for the reason we think.
Right, exactly. Well, maybe the whole beginning of the healing could be simply a wave.
Yes, hello. Yeah,
No
yes.
interaction whatsoever except for that. Hi,
That's
how
a
you doing?
great gesture, wave and a smile, yes.
And then finally moving on to bribery through lasagna. No, that's
If it goes that far, lasagna is kind of personal. You want to save that for the special ones.
well,
No, sharing.
well, I was kind of hoping actually.
When you come to Petaluma, honey, I got a lasagna for you.
Oh, okay.
Vegetarian, but you
Oh,
know.
that's okay. That's fine. That's good.
All right, I guess that's too.
Danny, Carolyn, anything from you?
For me, it's a moment by moment thing. It is not just like a big situation with a neighbor, but there it's going on in my mind all the time.
Hmm.
I have a small example of this. I'm taking a walk every day in around the Cornell plantations that is not far away from our home. And I make a point to try to connect with people that pass on the other side. You know, they will also walk either with a dog or alone or with a company. And I noticed that most people are in a mode of separation. And
Mhm.
I try to connect with them. There is an avoidance of eye contact, and I can almost read their thoughts. So my instinctive approach is to put myself into the shell myself. But I can choose a better way, and I can only control my own mind. And one sentence in the course that either there is a love or call for love. So behind that lack of communication and isolation, there is a call for love. So the answer is to find that love right now in the present moment in myself and share this love with that person and with the whole world. That came to my mind. Thank you for asking.
Carolyn?
When you said you go for a walk, I recognize that because I try to go for a walk every morning and around my neighborhood. And it's a joy for me because now people going by are tending to wave on their way by. I remind myself all the time on my walk, I am as God created me. I am a channel for peace and love. Breathe in love, breathe out light. When I see someone, I think, breathe in love, breathe out light. And sometimes I say hi and sometimes I don't. But if they're going by and I wave and say hi, have a good day, and they'll say the same thing. Sometimes they answer, sometimes it doesn't matter. But it's interesting how things are changing. And I had a surprising warming experience a couple of days ago. I'm on my walk and, you know, people come the other way to say hi and so on. And I got to the end of my street and down the highway, someone was walking along the shoulder quite a distance away. And I waved and I waved again. And that person saw it and waved back. So we had the little wave. And then reflexively, I just felt a connection. And I did this.
Hmm.
And as I did this, the person matched me within a second. And together, we did this to each other
Oh,
way down the road, and a blessing.
Mm.
And I waved, and then I turned around to come back through the village or through the subdivision. At first, I thought to myself, oh my God, what did I just do? I have no idea who this guy is. Is he going to, Carolyn, stop. And so I'm thinking this in my mind. It was a blessing, and it just was a reflex. I didn't think about it ahead of time. It just happened. And for the rest of my walk home, I was feeling so blessed.
Mm.
And I can't put a word to it. It was warm. I loved it. I'm smiling all the way home, and I'm thinking, and the fellow did not come down my street. He continued on. I don't know who it is. He had an orange turban on, not that that matters. It was, I have no idea who he is. I've never seen him before.
It was God.
We'll walk home. I was so, and I think of it now, and I'm telling you this, and I feel a little odd sharing it because it sort of was, I mean, I've waved at everybody I see, and I smile and, you know, may or may not talk. I have never done a blessing before. Like
now you
that.
have a new custom.
Don't know.
It's
But
the next step in
the
your
warmth-
wave.
The warmth and the joy, like the warmth that I felt, and I feel it now thinking about it. That is quite remarkable.
Thank you.
Never seen him before.
So inspiring. You know, well, now that you inspired me, I know what I need to do with a person that lives in Serbia, and he discovered together with me thousands of people who passed away in the Second World War, and he's very upset at me on the surface for not helping him in his work, you know, of discovering what happened and so on. And he sent me YouTube about his work. And while you were talking, his name and his essence came to my mind, and I decided to actually write to him, thank you, and bless him, because he's only looking for love, you know. And so that was an example of a better way. You found a better way. This is the better way. Thank you.
And I didn't think about it. It just did it. Like it just happened.
I think that's the best kind. Where we don't have it's not, it doesn't come from our conscious mind. It doesn't
No.
come from the ego mind. It just comes from
Somewhere.
that part of us that is connected with the Father.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So the idea of sharing the responsibility for the salvation of the world with whoever is before me, and that is not sharing that is very selfish.
Mm.
Not extending the idea that you and I, as members of the sonship, are together responsible for the salvation of the world, and so the world being the waking from the dream, and to acknowledge that I have a gazillion partners in this, and all I have to do is awaken to that idea and facilitate that idea in some way. How can I, how should I come to an encounter with one of the members of the sonship and walk away from that encounter having healed that little corner of the universe, and then allowing that person to go on and do that to the next person they in other words, paying it forward. I don't want to, I shouldn't have to wait for something to come my way to make that happen. I extend that out. That is how I am truly helpful. And truly helpful is not rearranging the decks on the Titanic. It is going beyond the idea of the ship is sinking to the idea that God is not going to allow his creation to falter, because God's love is perfect and infinite and whole. And so to extend that out to every person, every brother I see is coming into my storefront, is reading my t-shirt, is asking the question. And I, as that person who is knowledgeable of the question, or I should say, who has knowledge of the question, can help answer that in every reaction, making the relationship a holy one. And then moving from there to a holy relationship with the next person. And that person goes on and becomes a holy relationship source for the next person they meet. And every single time, it is just a matter of encouraging and acknowledging the fact that this is going to work. This is not impossible. This is not insurmountable. This is going to work because God's love works.
And it's being, it's not thinking or planning ahead of time, it's being.
Mhm.
And, you know, breathing in love, breathing out light, you can do it on the steps that you take, and it helps to be and not try and think about it. And
Right.
reminding myself too on my walks, you know, I am as God created me. Breathe in love, breathe out light. For me, it works. Yeah.
And I think it's important for me to keep it in the present tense, not in the future active.
True.
It is presently,
It's
it
now.
has happened in the past, it will happen in the future, because it is what God is. And if I, as Carolyn says, get out of my thoughts about what needs to be done and just,
Now.
yeah, I think the battle for me is not on who I'm encountering particularly, but it's dealing with any little fear thoughts that come up in my mind and remembering this thought is occupying my mind, and therefore, yeah, I just thought it's like a train, two trains, you know, and they have those little divider things that they whoop, and then the train goes in a different direction. If I'm thinking of a problem or trying to get a solution, I'm not beaming the love of God. That's my job. And when I'm out of my thoughts, that automatically happens. I automatically join, we automatically join. So for me, keeping God's thoughts in the present, but also catching myself. And last night I woke up about 3 or 4 when troubles, thoughts in my mind. A friend is in process, was in the process of passing and finally succeeded. The electricity went out. We were on the same grid as the hospital. I don't remember when our electricity went out. So I kind of think, you know, Jean had a little bit to do with that. But if I was busy thinking about what am I going to do, how am I going to make the coffee, my vaporizer won't work, blah, 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 I missed the point of Jean saying, aha, goodbye, Ella. You flash on out and here's a little change for you to notice. So part fantasy, I know that. But since the world is all an illusion and its thoughts don't seem to bring me pleasure and peace, I'm personally committed for my own joy to deal with what the kingdom I have to rule inside my head. And for me, it's as simple as that. And then people come and ask, or I interact, or I smile, or, you know, I remember the name of a little child. And, you know, little ways like that is for my release. And when I'm released, I'm told we're all released. So I'm not doing it for all of us. I'm doing it for for my mind to be at peace.
Well, the sonship only exists in one place in this world, in this dream, and that is in our mind, in my mind. And so I cannot do any good for the sonship by trying to go out and fix all this. This is not going to work. Just like telling the story or reading the story in a book, trying to peek ahead to the last page of the book and read what the last page, that's not going to do any good. The problem, the solution is right here on the page that I'm reading right now. And it is not anyone else's problem. It is my solution. It's no one's problem. It's my solution. It is my need for salvation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I cannot expect that from anyone else. It's not fair to expect that from anyone else. It is absolutely fair and incumbent upon me as the perfectly created child of God to expect that from myself. To remove the blocks to the presence of love in front of me, simply sliding them aside and understand that they don't, once they moved aside, that's it. I don't have to worry about them come tumbling back again unless I want them to. But if I can tell this block, the awareness of love's presence, that's where you stay there. You sit right there. I'm going to go on. That's right.
Excellent. Yeah.
What I discovered that the seemingly triggers, fear thoughts, attacks from the outside, life situations that seem not in harmony are actually the greatest help, because they are coming actually to be healed from inside, and they are represented in the outside world. So to give you an example, what happened to me this morning, I didn't sleep much last night. You know, I have to go to the bathroom every 2 hours. So I don't get a you know, so I slept a little longer, but what I'm doing every morning lately is something so powerful for me. It's called the presence process. And all I'm doing is breathing for 15 minutes without pause, not special breathing, not yogic breathing, just breathing in and out through the nose if I can, you know. And at the end of those 15 minutes, because I'm not thinking, you see, before, because my fears and depressions, I stopped breathing because I thought that life would be more safe if I stop the world. So I basically tried to stop breathing. So I was breathing very, very shallow. But now, in these 15 minutes this morning, I was breathing beautifully. And at the end of those 15 minutes, and by the way, my wife, my beloved wife, is representing these negative things that are actually the gift. So she tries to get into the room. She's anxious. She wants to solve the problem of going to New Zealand and so on. And I tell her, she asked me finally to unlock the door after I did the breathing process. And I told her that what I'm experiencing, and it really worked because she acknowledged it and there was a lot of peace. I told her that what I'm doing, I'm holding me as a little child, my child self, in my arms like that. I'm holding it and I'm comforted in it because my mother was a Holocaust survivor. And when I was very, very young, an only child, she never expressed her feelings and never nurtured me. She needed me to be her mother, her father, and her sister. The
Mhm.
whole family perished, and I was everything for her. So I did not understand this. So those feelings were buried inside my subconscious mind and were trying to come out. So my wife represented it to me in the outside world. She was the projection of my inner feelings. So when I breathed, I actually went to the core cause, to the root cause, and I took this little child and I told this little child, you are safe now. I love you. I am taking care of you. And it was so good. And my wife accepted it. And she is going to her own. And it's a process. So
Mm.
that's I wanted to share it with you because
Thank you.
it's so healing for me to share. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It is, we are not going to heal the outside world until we heal the world within us. So healing begins at home. And when we heal our mind, our own world, then when we start projecting to the outside world what it is we want to see, that becomes healed as well. But it all starts here in me. Absolutely. Absolutely.
As
And
you're
all the,
talking, thank you, Danny. As you're talking and you're doing this, I can feel that healing from the inside. Thank you for telling us that.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes. Mm.
That's Judy, that's not lasagna you're eating, is it? You're muted.
You're muted.
Grapes, my very favorite food.
Ah,
This is wine to me.
Uh-huh.
without all the process.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting point. So we have this fruit here in front of us, and we can process this fruit, and we can put it through all kinds of machinery, and we can let it wait and sit and ferment and all this, or we just pop it in our mouth, and we don't need a whole great big huge complicated process to make it just as good as if putting the cork in the bottle and letting it sit there for 16 years on the shelf and all that. I am already perfectly fermented. And I am going to be the elixir that is going to heal the world simply by popping the fruit in my mouth and offering the fruit to my brother.
And offering.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to read real quick the prayer for in today's lesson. Lesson 239, the glory of my Father is my own. We thank you, Father, for the light that shines forever in us, and we honor it because you share it with us. We are one, united in this light, and one with you, at peace with all creation and ourselves.
That's so beautiful.
It is the idea that we are already one, and my only job is to acknowledge that and to extend that idea and that knowledge to my brother who is asking, there must be a better way. What is it? Oh, look, it always comes back to that. It's so cool. Any last thoughts from anyone?
Oh my goodness, has the hour gone by? Amazing.
I love it.
Thank you for starting this.
Thank you for sharing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I will figure out how to process this recording, and then I will send it out to all of us and everyone else on the mailing list as well. All right.
Thank you.
And
Alrighty.
if you have any other thoughts, you know where to find me. And between now and next Saturday, send me an email if you have any thoughts or images or encounters or anything that you find are helping to discover there must be a better way. And also, we'll see you next Saturday. Thank you all very much.
Thank
You are
you.
my
Have a
great,
blessed week, everybody.
thank you. You are my
Bless you.
great teachers.
My
Thank you.
daughter and at her new place and traveling with a dear old friend of 40 years. We're going down to see her through the part of Ontario. It's a beautiful drive and I'll be back.
Journey well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.